The sun had barely broken across the hills of Canaan when the story of judgment and divine reckoning began to unfold in the ancient cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. These cities, nestled in the fertile valley of Siddim near the Dead Sea, had become symbols of extreme moral decay. Despite the wealth, architectural grandeur, and abundant resources, their inhabitants were immersed in egregious sin, defying the natural law and offending the justice of God. Abraham, the patriarch of faith, stood as a spiritual intercessor on the highlands overlooking the cities. God had promised him a son and a future, but that promise came alongside the awareness of divine justice. When messengers of the Lord, angels in human form, visited Abraham in the plains of Mamre, their message was twofold: the confirmation of Isaac's birth and the announcement of judgment upon Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham's conversation with God over the fate of these cities is among the most poignant theological dialogues in Scripture. Learning of God's intent to investigate the cry rising from Sodom, Abraham pleaded, "Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" This intercession, negotiating down from 50 to 10 righteous men, reflected Abraham's heart for justice and mercy, a foreshadowing of the divine patience that would continue throughout biblical history. Meanwhile, in the doomed city of Sodom, Lot, Abraham's nephew, lived with his wife and daughters. Though once drawn to the well-watered lands of the Jordan, Lot now faced the spiritual consequences of choosing comfort over covenant. When two angels entered Sodom in the evening, Lot recognized them and insisted they stay at his home, knowing the danger that lurked in the streets. The vile nature of the city was exposed when the men of Sodom surrounded Lot's house, demanding to abuse the visitors. Lot, in a gesture of misguided hospitality, offered his daughters instead, an act that, while protective in motive, revealed the moral erosion even of the righteous within a corrupted environment. The angels, revealing their divine nature, struck the aggressors with blindness and warned Lot to flee with his family, for the city's destruction was imminent. As dawn approached, urgency increased. Lot hesitated, torn by emotional and social ties to the place he called home. The angels took him, his wife, and his two daughters, by the hand and led them out, urging them to flee to the mountains and not look back. But Lot's wife, unable to sever her attachment, looked back at the burning city and was turned into a pillar of salt, symbol of disobedience and the perils of nostalgia for a sinful past. Then came the fire. The heavens rained down burning sulfur, and the once thriving cities were reduced to smoke and ash. Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim all were obliterated. Abraham rose early and looked toward the plain, and saw dense smoke rising from the land like smoke from a furnace. God's judgment was complete, yet even in that judgment, mercy prevailed, for Lot was spared. In the aftermath, Lot's daughters, believing they were the last humans on earth, took matters into their own hands and bore children by their father while he was unaware. These children became the ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites nations, that would later interact often, and sometimes violently, with the descendants of Abraham. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah has long stood as a biblical archetype of divine wrath against systemic wickedness, but also as a narrative of intercession, mercy, and the enduring consequences of human choices. Abraham's dialogue with God reminds believers of the power of prayer and the mystery of divine justice. Lot's deliverance affirms that even amid judgment, God's mercy can rescue the remnant. This story is not simply one of ancient catastrophe, it is a call to moral clarity, spiritual vigilance, and faithful intercession in a world often teetering toward its own destruction.